The metal baton came down fast. Nala didn't think. She moved. Her hand shot up, deflecting the strike. The attacker's eyes widened, shocked that a janitor could move like that. But Nala wasn't a janitor. Not really. She drove her knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. The second attacker rushed her from the right. She spun, grabbed his arm, and twisted. The joint lock was textbook FBI. He screamed. Behind them, a Korean businessman lay bleeding on the airport floor. 3 men in maintenance uniforms had tried to kill him. They didn't count on her. But to understand how we got here, how a billionaire CEO ended up bleeding in LAX at 2:47 a.m., and how a woman mopping floors became his only chance at survival, we need to go back. Just 6 hours earlier. Min-jun Park was exactly the kind of man people wrote articles about. At 35, he was the founder and CEO of NextCore AI, a company that had revolutionized artificial intelligence security systems. Forbes estimated his net worth at $3.2 billion. The Wall Street Journal called him the tech genius who never sleeps. But tonight, Min-jun wasn't in Silicon Valley. He was in Los Angeles for a reason he couldn't tell anyone about. For the past 8 months, he'd been in secret negotiations with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. His AI surveillance technology could identify threats in real time: human trafficking networks, terrorist cells, cartel operations. The contract was worth $500 million, but more importantly, it would position NextCore as the most powerful security AI company in the world. The deal was scheduled to close in 72 hours. Someone didn't want that to happen. Min-jun had received the first threat 3 weeks ago, an anonymous email with details about his daily routine that no outsider should know. The second threat came as a dead rat left on his hotel pillow. The third was a phone call with a digitally altered voice. Cancel the deal or you won't live to sign it. Min-jun didn't scare easily. He'd grown up poor in Seoul, built his first company at 19, and lost everything in a fraud scandal that nearly destroyed him. He'd clawed his way back, learned to trust no one, and surrounded himself with the best security money could buy. But tonight, he'd made a calculated risk. The final contract negotiation required absolute secrecy. If competitors knew how close he was to closing this deal, they'd do everything possible to sabotage it. So instead of traveling with his usual 8-person security team, he brought only one bodyguard, a former Navy SEAL named Marcus. They'd flown into LAX on his private jet at 2:30 a.m. to avoid attention. 16 minutes later, Min-jun would be bleeding on the airport floor. Now let me tell you about the woman who would save him. Nala Thompson was 28 years old, and for the past 8 months, she'd been invisible. That was the point. Every night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., she mopped floors at LAX Terminal 4. She wore the same blue maintenance uniform, kept her head down, and never made eye contact with travelers. To everyone around her, she was just part of the background, as forgettable as the vending machines or the departure boards. But Nala Thompson wasn't a janitor. At least, she hadn't always been. 6 years ago, Nala had been one of the youngest field agents in the FBI's Organized Crime Division. She'd specialized in undercover operations, the kind of assignments that required you to disappear into someone else's life for months at a time. She'd infiltrated drug cartels, human trafficking rings, and corrupt corporations. She was good at it. Too good. 2 years ago, Nala had been deep undercover in a Los Angeles-based operation targeting the Ochoa cartel, a brutal organization responsible for moving $200 million in drugs and weapons across the U.S. border every year. It took her 14 months to gain their trust, another 6 months to gather enough evidence to bring down the entire leadership. The FBI raid was a success. 37 arrests, $89 million in assets seized. The Ochoa cartel was finished. But Diego Ochoa, the cartel's founder, escaped, and he knew exactly who had betrayed him. The threats started immediately. First, they targeted Nala, then her younger sister in Chicago, then her mother in Atlanta. The FBI offered her witness protection, but Nala knew how these things worked. Witness protection meant a new identity, a new city, a life spent looking over her shoulder forever. She wanted something different. So she made a deal with her FBI handler. She'd disappear completely, off every official record, with no protection detail that could be traced. In exchange, The FBI would quietly move her family to a secure location under new identities and monitor any cartel activity that might threaten them. For 8 months, it worked. Nala became a ghost. She rented a tiny apartment in Inglewood under a fake name. Got a job as a night janitor at LAX, where security cameras were everywhere, the safest place to hide in plain sight. She sent money to her family through encrypted channels, and they believed she was working as a consultant overseas. Every night, she mopped floors and watched travelers come and go. She told herself this was temporary, that eventually Diego Ochoa would be caught or killed and she could reclaim her life. But tonight, 8 months of invisibility was about to end. Minjun stepped off his private jet at 2:30 a.m. Marcus, his bodyguard, walked slightly behind him, close enough to react, far enough to give Minjun space. They moved through the private terminal quickly. Minjun hated airports. Too many variables. Too many people. Cars waiting outside, Marcus said, scanning the corridor. We'll be at the hotel in 20 minutes. Minjun nodded. In 6 hours, he had a breakfast meeting with the Deputy Director of Homeland Security. In 72 hours, he'd signed the contract that would change everything. They entered Terminal 4's main corridor. That's when Nala saw them. She was mopping near Gate 47, earbuds in, listening to absolutely nothing. The earbuds were part of her camouflage. People didn't bother you if they thought you couldn't hear them. But Nala was always listening, always watching. She noticed Minjun immediately. You didn't work in organized crime without learning to spot wealth and power. This man moved like someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. The bodyguard beside him had the posture of former military, probably special forces. Nala filed it away and kept mopping. Then she saw the 3 men. They wore maintenance uniforms, but something was off. The uniforms were too clean. No stains, no wear. Their shoes were wrong too. Tactical boots, not the cheap sneakers maintenance workers wore. And they were moving with purpose, converging on the businessman and his guard from 3 different angles. Nala's instincts kicked in immediately. She'd seen this pattern before. Coordinated approach, isolated target, early morning when security was minimal. This was a hit. She had maybe 15 seconds to decide, keep mopping and stay invisible, or blow her cover and intervene. Nala thought about her family, about 8 months of careful hiding, about the life she'd worked so hard to leave behind. Then she thought about the man who was about to die. She dropped her mop. The first attacker moved fast. He approached Minjun with a friendly smile, holding out his phone. Excuse me, sir? Do you know how to get to Terminal 6? It was a classic distraction technique. Minjun slowed down, and Marcus instinctively stepped forward to handle the interaction. That's when the second attacker struck. He came from Marcus's blind spot, moving like someone with military training. Before Marcus could react, a taser hit him in the ribs. 50,000 volts dropped the former SEAL instantly. The third attacker swung the metal baton. It connected with Minjun's temple with a sickening crack. Minjun collapsed, blood streaming from his head. The first attacker kicked Marcus's unconscious body aside and pulled out a knife. The second one grabbed Minjun by the collar, dragging him toward a maintenance door 30 feet away. The third stood watch, scanning for security. They had maybe 90 seconds before airport security arrived. Nala moved. She didn't run. Running attracted attention. She walked quickly, purposefully, like someone heading to grab cleaning supplies. But her body had already shifted into combat mode. Heart rate steady, breathing controlled, mind calculating distances and angles. 20 feet away, the first attacker saw her approaching and dismissed her immediately. Just a janitor, not a threat. 15 feet. Nala's hand slid into her uniform pocket and pulled out a small canister, industrial-strength pepper spray she'd carried every night for the past 8 months. Not because she expected to need it, but because old habits died hard. 10 feet. The attacker finally noticed her closing in. Keep walking, lady. This doesn't concern you. Nala kept walking. 5 feet. The man raised his knife. I said. Nala sprayed him directly in the face. He screamed, dropping the knife and clutching his eyes. Nala didn't hesitate. She drove her knee into his solar plexus, collapsing his diaphragm. As he doubled over, she grabbed his head and slammed it into her rising knee. He dropped unconscious. The whole thing took 3 seconds. The second attacker released Minjun and spun around. Who the hell? He didn't finish the sentence. Nala closed the distance in 2 strides. He swung at her, but she ducked under his arm, grabbed his wrist, and twisted. The joint lock was textbook, FBI hand-to-hand combat training that she'd drilled 10,000 times. His arm hyperextended with a pop, and he howled in pain. She swept his legs and drove him face first into the floor. 2 down, 1 to go. The third attacker was different. He didn't look surprised, didn't look scared. He looked at Nala the way a chess player looks at an unexpected move, calculating, adjusting. He dropped the baton and pulled a gun from his waistband. Smart, he said, aiming at her chest. But not smart enough. Nala froze. Her pepper spray was empty. She was 15 feet away, too far to close the distance before he fired. But she noticed something. His grip on the gun was slightly off. His stance favored his left leg. And when he'd pulled the weapon, he'd winced. Old injury, probably a shoulder wound that never healed right. "You're FBI," the man said. It wasn't a question. "I recognize the Krav Maga hybrid. Bureau trains their undercover agents that way. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead." Nala's blood ran cold. He knew who she was, which meant this wasn't about Min-jun. It was about her. The attacker smiled. "Diego sends his regards." Everything clicked into place. The Ochoa cartel hadn't forgotten about her. They'd been hunting her for 8 months, and somehow they'd found her. But that didn't explain Min-jun. Unless, the businessman, Nala said slowly, "You're not here for him, are you? You're here for me. He's just bait." The attacker's smile widened. "Smart girl, we've been watching you for 3 weeks. Figured out your routine, knew you'd see a hit going down and couldn't help yourself. That FBI hero complex, it's what got you in trouble the first time." Airport security was approaching. Nala could hear their radios, maybe 40 seconds away. The attacker heard them too. "Diego wants you to know something before you die. Your sister Jessica, your mom Diane, we know exactly where they are. Witness protection can't hide them forever." Rage flooded through Nala's chest, but she kept her voice calm. "If you knew where they were, they'd already be dead." "You're bluffing." "Maybe," the man said. "Maybe not. Either way, you won't be around to find out." His finger tightened on the trigger. Then Min-jun moved. The billionaire wasn't unconscious. The baton had hit him hard, but he'd stayed aware, a skill he'd learned growing up in rough neighborhoods where showing weakness got you killed. He'd been lying still, bleeding, waiting for an opening. Now he took it. Min-jun grabbed the dropped metal baton and swung it like a baseball bat at the attacker's knee. The joint shattered. The attacker screamed and his shot went wild, the bullet punching into the ceiling. He dropped to one leg. And Nala closed the distance instantly. She kicked the gun from his hand, grabbed his collar, and slammed his head into the ground once, twice, 3 times. He stopped moving. Nala looked down at Min-jun. Blood covered half his face, but his eyes were sharp, focused. "You saved my life," she said. "No," Min-jun replied, struggling to his feet. "You saved mine first. I just returned the favor." Security arrived. 6 officers with guns drawn, shouting commands. Nala raised her hand slowly. She looked at Min-jun, then at Marcus, who was starting to come around, groaning in pain. This was it. The moment where her 8 months of invisibility ended. Security would detain her. They'd run her fingerprints. The FBI would be notified. And once her location was in the system, the cartel would know exactly where to find her. Her family would be in danger. She'd have to run again. But then Min-jun did something unexpected. He stepped in front of her, blood still dripping from his head, and faced the security officers. "I'm Min-jun Park," he said, his voice carrying authority despite his injuries. "CEO of NextCore AI. These 3 men just attempted to assassinate me. This woman saved my life. She's not a threat. She's a hero, and she's coming with me." The security officers hesitated. One of them, a graying man with sergeant stripes, lowered his weapon slightly. "Sir, we need to detain everyone involved until LAPD arrives." "Call them," Min-jun interrupted. "But this woman stays with me. I have a meeting with the Deputy Director of Homeland Security in 6 hours. I'm a federal contractor. This was an attempted assassination on U.S. soil, which makes it a matter of national security." He was bluffing, but his voice carried the kind of certainty that came from years of boardroom negotiations, the kind of voice that made people believe whatever he said. The sergeant looked at his team, then at the 3 unconscious attackers, then at Nala. "I still need statements from both of you." You'll have them, Minjun said. But first, I need medical attention, and so does she. Nala wanted to object, wanted to disappear into the crowd before more questions came. But her ribs ached from the fight, and her right hand was swelling. She'd probably fractured something when she'd hit the second attacker. More importantly, Minjun was right. Running now would only draw more attention. The sergeant nodded slowly. Fine, but you don't leave this airport until LAPD clears you. 20 minutes later, Nala sat in a private medical room while a paramedic examined her hand. Minjun was in the next room getting his head wound stitched. Marcus, the bodyguard, had been taken to a hospital with taser burns and a concussion. 2 LAPD detectives stood in the doorway, waiting. Nala knew what came next. They'd ask for her name, her identification. They'd run her prints through the system, and even though she was technically still an FBI agent on unpaid leave, her records were flagged. Any search would ping her former handler. Within hours, the Ochoa cartel would know she'd resurfaced. The paramedic finished wrapping her hand. Hairline fracture on your 4th metacarpal. You need to keep this immobilized for at least 2 weeks. Thanks, Nala said quietly. The first detective stepped forward, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes. I'm Detective Sarah Chen. This is my partner, Detective Rodriguez. We need to ask you some questions about what happened. Nala nodded. I understand. Let's start with your name. Here it was, the moment where everything unraveled. Before Nala could answer, Minjun appeared in the doorway. A white bandage covered the left side of his head, and his shirt was still stained with blood, but he moved with purpose. Detectives, he said. Before you continue, I need to speak with my attorney, and I'm requesting that this woman be allowed to consult with legal counsel as well. Detective Chen frowned. Sir, this is a straightforward assault case. We just need basic information. Those 3 men attempted to murder me, Minjun said. I'm the CEO of a company with contracts pending with multiple federal agencies. This could be corporate espionage, terrorism, or organized crime. Until I understand which, I'm not making any statements without my legal team present. It was a power move, and everyone in the room knew it. Detective Rodriguez looked annoyed, but Chen just sighed. How long until your attorney arrives? She asked. 3 hours. Fine, but neither of you leaves this terminal. The detectives left, muttering to each other. The paramedic followed, leaving Nala and Minjun alone. Nala stood slowly. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, Minjun said. Those men weren't just trying to kill me. That last one knew you, called you FBI, said someone named Diego sent his regards. Nala's jaw tightened. You shouldn't have heard that. Well, I did. Minjun studied her carefully. You're not a janitor. You're former law enforcement, and someone very dangerous is hunting you. Nala looked away. It's complicated. I'm a billionaire who just got attacked at an airport by 3 trained killers, Minjun said. My entire life is complicated. Try me. For 8 months, Nala had told her story to no one, kept every secret locked away, but something about the way Minjun looked at her, without judgment, without fear, just genuine curiosity, made her want to talk. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the adrenaline crash. Or maybe it was because this man had saved her life when he could have just stayed down. My name is Nala Thompson, she said quietly. 2 years ago, I was an FBI agent working undercover to bring down the Ochoa cartel. I succeeded. They went to prison. But their leader, Diego Ochoa, escaped, and he's been hunting me ever since. Minjun absorbed this information. So you disappeared, became a janitor, stayed off the grid. For 8 months it worked, Nala said. But tonight, they found me, and they used you as bait. Why me? I don't know yet. But that third attacker said they'd been watching me for 3 weeks. They knew my routine, knew I'd intervene if I saw someone being attacked. She looked at Minjun directly. Do you have any connection to the Ochoa cartel? Any business dealings in Los Angeles that might involve organized crime? Minjun shook his head. No, my company builds AI security systems. We work with governments and corporations, not criminals. Then it was random, Nala said. They needed a high-profile target to lure me out. You just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or, Minjun said slowly, someone knew I'd be here tonight and told them. The implication hung in the air. Nala had worked enough undercover operations to know how cartels functioned. They didn't set up elaborate hits based on coincidence. They gathered intelligence, exploited connections. And if they knew Minjun would be at LAX at 2:47 a.m., a time and location he'd kept secret, that meant someone in his circle had leaked the information. "You have a mole," Nala said. Minjun's expression darkened. "That's impossible. Only 4 people knew I was flying into LAX tonight. My COO, my head of security, my executive assistant, and Marcus. I've known all of them for years. I trust them with my life." "And yet," Nala said, 3 men knew exactly where you'd be and when you'd be there." Minjun pulled out his phone and made a call. It rang twice before someone answered. "James," Minjun said, "I need you to run a full audit on everyone who had access to my travel schedule for the past month. Yes, including Marcus. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. Do it now." He hung up and looked at Nala. "James is my head of cybersecurity. If there's a leak, he'll find it." "The Ochoa cartel is sophisticated," Nala warned. "They don't just hack emails. They blackmail, bribe, and threaten. If someone on your team is feeding them information, they're either being paid or coerced." "Then we find them," Minjun said, "and we shut this down." Nala shook her head. "There is no we. In 3 hours, LAPD is going to fingerprint me. My FBI handler will be notified, and the cartel will know exactly where I am. I need to disappear again before that happens." "You can't keep running," Minjun said. "Watch me. They'll find you again, and next time you might not be so lucky." Minjun stepped closer. "You saved my life tonight. Let me return the favor. Work for me." Nala stared at him. "What?" "I need someone I can trust," Minjun said. "Someone who can identify threats before they happen. Someone with your training and instincts, and you need resources. The kind of resources that can protect you and your family while you figure out how to end this permanently." "I'm a wanted woman," Nala said. "The cartel won't stop until I'm dead." "Then we make sure they stop," Minjun said. "I have connections in law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and private security. I can get you access to information the FBI won't share, and I can pay you enough to relocate your family somewhere even Diego Ochoa can't reach." It was a tempting offer, but Nala had learned the hard way not to trust anyone. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "You don't know me. For all you know, I'm the reason you were attacked tonight." "You're not," Minjun said simply. "If you wanted me dead, you would have let those men finish the job. Instead, you risked your life to save mine. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Nala wanted to argue, wanted to walk away, but she was tired of running. Tired of hiding, and maybe, just maybe, this billionaire with a bleeding head wound and an impossibly calm demeanor was offering her a way to fight back. "If I agree," Nala said slowly, "I have conditions." "Name them." "First, my family gets relocated immediately, somewhere secure with 24/7 protection that can't be traced back to you or me." "Done." "Second, I operate independently. You don't control where I go or what I do. If I think a situation is too dangerous, I walk away." "Agreed." "Third," Nala said, "when this is over, when Diego Ochoa is dead or in prison, I disappear again. Permanently, no strings attached." Minjun hesitated for the first time. "What if you don't want to disappear?" "I will," Nala said. "I always do. We'll see." Minjun extended his hand. "Do we have a deal?" Nala looked at his hand, then at his face. This man was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Maybe both. She shook his hand. "Deal." 3 hours later, Minjun's attorney arrived. A sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Park, who specialized in corporate law and federal negotiations. She spent 20 minutes on the phone with someone at the FBI, then another 10 with LAPD's captain. When she finally emerged from the private security office, she looked satisfied. "You're both clear to leave," Catherine said. "The 3 attackers are in custody. LAPD is treating this as an attempted murder, and the FBI has taken over jurisdiction because of Nala's involvement. Your friend at the bureau pulled some strings." Nala felt a wave of relief. Her former handler must have intervened to keep her identity protected. It bought her time. Minjun stood. "Good, we need to leave before sunrise. Too many cameras, too many witnesses." They exited through a private terminal where Minjun's driver waited with a black Mercedes SUV. The sun was starting to rise over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. As they drove through empty streets, Nala stared out the window. 8 months of hiding, gone in one night. But instead of fear, she felt something unexpected. Purpose. Minjun's phone buzzed. He answered immediately. "James, what did you find?" There was a long pause while he listened. His expression hardened. Are you certain? Another pause. Send me everything. And James, tell no one else, not even my COO. He hung up and looked at Nala. We have a problem. The mole? My executive assistant, Claire Rodriguez. She's worked for me for 4 years. I trusted her with everything. My schedule, my travel plans, my private meetings. James found encrypted messages on her personal laptop. She's been feeding information to someone for the past 2 months. The cartel? Not directly. A shell company based in Mexico that James traced back to Ochoa's network. Minjin's voice was cold. She sold me out for $50,000. Nala had seen this before. People convinced themselves that one small betrayal wouldn't hurt anyone, that the money was worth the risk. They never considered the consequences until it was too late. What do you want to do? Nala asked. Confront her. Find out what else she told them. Bad idea, Nala said. If you confront her, she'll run or lawyer up. Better to use her as a source of misinformation. Minjin looked impressed. You've done this before. More times than I can count. They arrived at a luxury hotel in Beverly Hills, the kind of place where security was tight and discretion was guaranteed. Minjin had reserved an entire floor under a false name. As they rode the elevator up, Nala felt the weight of exhaustion finally hitting her. She hadn't slept in 20 hours. Her hand throbbed, her ribs ached, and somewhere in Mexico, Diego Ochoa was probably celebrating the news that his men had found her. The elevator doors opened. Minjin's suite was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture, a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a restaurant. But Nala barely noticed. She walked to the window and stared out at Los Angeles, stretching in every direction. Your family, Minjin said behind her. Where are they now? Chicago and Atlanta. Witness protection moved them 8 months ago. New identities, new lives. They think I'm working as a security consultant overseas. Do you talk to them? Encrypted messages once a week. Nothing that can be traced. That must be lonely. Nala turned to face him. It's necessary. Maybe it was, Minjin said. But things are different now. You're not alone anymore. I've been alone for 8 months. I'm used to it. That doesn't mean you have to stay that way. Minjin pulled out his phone. I'm going to make some calls. By tonight, your family will be relocated to a secure property I own in Montana. 50 acres, private security, completely off the grid. They can live there as long as they need to. Nala felt something crack in her chest. For 8 months, she'd carried the weight of her family's safety alone. And now this stranger, this billionaire she'd met 4 hours ago, was offering to shoulder that burden. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Minjin was silent for a moment. When I was 19, I built my first company. It was successful. Too successful. A competitor wanted to buy me out. I refused, so they destroyed me, fabricated fraud charges, bribed officials, ruined my reputation. I lost everything. My business, my money, my future. What did you do? I disappeared, Minjin said. Moved to the U.S. with nothing but the clothes on my back. Worked 3 jobs, saved every penny, and started over. It took me 10 years to rebuild. 10 years of being alone, trusting no one, fighting every battle by myself. He looked at Nala directly. I know what it's like to have the world turn against you, to have no one you can trust. And I know how much it costs to survive that way. So when I see someone who's been through the same thing, someone who saved my life without hesitation, I don't ask why I should help them. I ask why I wouldn't. Nala didn't know what to say. She'd spent so long believing that everyone was either a target or a threat, that trusting people only led to betrayal. But Minjin was offering something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Thank you, she said. Minjin nodded. Get some rest. Tonight, we start planning how to end this. Nala slept for 6 hours in a guest room with blackout curtains and the softest bed she'd touched in months. When she woke, the sun was setting over Los Angeles. She found Minjin in the suite's living room, surrounded by laptops and documents. His head wound had been cleaned and properly bandaged. He'd changed into a fresh shirt and looked like he hadn't slept at all. Your family is en route to Montana, he said without looking up. They'll arrive in 3 hours. I've assigned a 6-person security team, all former Secret Service. No one gets within a mile of that property without us knowing. Nala felt tears prick her eyes but forced them back. Thank you. There's more. Minjun said. I reached out to a contact at the DEA. Diego Ochoa has been operating out of a compound in Tijuana for the past year. Mexican authorities can't touch him because he's paying off half the local police. But he's getting sloppy, making mistakes. They think he'll be vulnerable in the next few weeks. Vulnerable how? He's planning to move a major shipment through San Diego. $40 million in cocaine. If that shipment gets intercepted, it'll cripple his operation and force him to come out of hiding. Nala sat down slowly. You want to use me as bait? No, Minjun said. I want to give you the resources to finish what you started 2 years ago. The DEA will handle the shipment, but they need someone who knows Ochoa's network. Someone who can identify his key players and predict his moves. That's me. Only if you want it to be, Minjun said. This is your choice, Nala. You can disappear again. Take your family to Montana and live quietly, or you can end this permanently. Nala thought about 8 months of hiding, about her sister Jessica, who thought she was dead, about her mother Diane, who'd cried herself to sleep every night wondering what happened to her daughter. She thought about Diego Ochoa, a monster who destroyed countless lives and would keep destroying them until someone stopped him. And she thought about Minjun, who'd given her something she thought was impossible, a chance to fight back. I'm in, Nala said. Minjun smiled for the first time since she'd met him. Good, because I have a plan. Over the next 3 weeks, Nala stopped being invisible. Minjun moved her into a secure apartment in downtown Los Angeles, a penthouse with bulletproof windows and a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. She had access to his entire intelligence network, former CIA analysts, private investigators, and a cybersecurity team that could hack into almost anything. But more importantly, she had a purpose again. Every morning, Nala met with DEA agents who were building a case against Diego Ochoa. She provided detailed information about his operation, the names of lieutenants, supply routes, safe houses, and offshore accounts. Information she'd gathered during her 14 months undercover, but had never been able to fully utilize. The DEA was impressed. Within 2 weeks, they'd identified 17 key members of Ochoa's network still operating in the United States. Within 3 weeks, they had a plan to intercept his $40 million cocaine shipment. But Nala knew Diego Ochoa wouldn't go down without a fight. He's paranoid, she told Minjun one evening as they reviewed intelligence reports in his hotel suite. He trusts no one, sleeps in a different location every night, changes his phone every 48 hours. The only way to get to him is to make him come to us. How? Minjun asked. We take something he values more than money. Which is? Reputation, Nala said. Diego Ochoa didn't build his empire on violence alone. He built it on fear, on the belief that crossing him meant death. When I testified against him 2 years ago, I damaged that reputation, made him look weak. That's why he's been hunting me, not for revenge, for credibility. Minjun leaned back. So if we humiliate him again, he'll come out of hiding to restore his reputation. And when he does, we'll be waiting. The plan came together quickly. The DEA would intercept Ochoa's cocaine shipment as planned, but they'd make it public. A massive press conference with Nala's name attached to the operation. Headlines reading, FBI agent who took down Ochoa cartel strikes again. It was a calculated risk. Putting Nala's name in the media would make her a target. But it would also force Ochoa to respond. He'll send his best people, Nala warned. Not amateurs like those 3 at the airport, real killers. Then we'll be ready, Minjun said. 2 days later, the DEA seized the shipment. $40 million in cocaine gone. 7 of Ochoa's men arrested, and Nala's name was everywhere. CNN, Fox News, The New York Times. Former FBI agent Nala Thompson, who went into hiding after bringing down the Ochoa cartel 2 years ago, has emerged to assist federal authorities in another major blow to organized crime. Minjun watched the news coverage from his suite. This is going to work. Or it's going to get me killed, Nala said. But there was no fear in her voice, just determination. That night, Minjun's cybersecurity team detected unusual activity on the dark web, encrypted messages offering $2 million for information on Nala's location, another $5 million for anyone who could deliver her alive to Diego Ochoa. He took the bait, Minjun said. Now we wait, Nala replied. They didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, James, Minjun's head of cybersecurity intercepted an encrypted message sent to Claire Rodriguez, the executive assistant who'd been feeding information to the cartel. "They're asking her for your location," James said, offering her another $100,000. Minjun looked at Nala. "Do we give it to them?" "Not yet," Nala said. "First, we find out if Ochoa is coming himself or sending his people." They ran a sting operation. Claire, who still didn't know she'd been exposed, received a carefully crafted message through her cartel contact. Target confirmed at NextCore AI headquarters, downtown LA. High security but accessible through underground parking. Payment on delivery. It was a trap. NextCore's headquarters had been evacuated except for a skeleton crew of security personnel, all of them former Special Forces operators Minjun had hired specifically for this operation. 2 days later, they came. Not 3 men this time. 8. They arrived in 2 black vans at 11 p.m., entering through the underground parking garage exactly as the fake intelligence had suggested. They were professional. Body armor, suppressed weapons, coordinated movements. But they were walking into a kill box. Nala watched from the security command center on the 3rd floor, surrounded by monitors showing every angle of the parking garage. Minjun stood beside her, his expression tense. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "No," Nala admitted, "but it's too late to back out now." The 8 men spread through the parking garage, moving toward the elevator that would take them to Minjun's executive office, where they believed Nala was located. That's when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim red bulbs that barely illuminated the concrete space. The attackers froze, scanning for threats. Then Minjun's security team moved in. They came from every direction. 12 operators in tactical gear, using non-lethal weapons. Flashbangs disoriented the attackers. Rubber bullets took down 3 of them before they could return fire. The remaining 5 tried to fight back, but they were outmaneuvered and outgunned. Within 90 seconds, all 8 men were on the ground, zip-tied and disarmed. But Nala wasn't celebrating. "Where's Ochoa?" she asked, scanning the monitors. "He wouldn't send his men without backup. He's here somewhere." Minjun pulled up additional camera feeds, street views, rooftop angles, nearby buildings. Then Nala saw it. A black SUV parked 2 blocks away, engine running, and in the back seat, illuminated by a laptop screen, was a face she'd seen in nightmares for 2 years. Diego Ochoa. He was watching, waiting to see if his men succeeded before making his move. "There," Nala said, pointing at the monitor. "That's him." "He's outside our perimeter," Minjun said. "By the time LAPD gets there, he'll be gone." Nala grabbed her jacket. "Then I'm going after him." "Nala, wait," but she was already moving. Nala took the stairs, descending 12 floors in less than 3 minutes. Her hands still ached from the fracture, but adrenaline dulled the pain. She burst through the lobby doors and onto the street. 2 blocks. She could cover that in 40 seconds if she ran. But she didn't run. Running would alert Ochoa's driver. Instead, she walked quickly, staying in the shadows, moving like the undercover agent she used to be. 1 block. The SUV's engine was still running. She could see the silhouette of the driver in the front seat. Ochoa was still in the back, focused on his laptop. Half a block. Her hand slid into her jacket and pulled out the Glock 19. Minjun had given her 3 days ago. She told him she didn't need a weapon. He'd insisted. Now she was grateful. 20 feet. The driver spotted her. His hand moved toward something, probably a gun. Nala raised her weapon and fired twice through the driver's side window. The shots hit the headrest, intentionally missing the driver but close enough to make him freeze. "Hands on the wheel," Nala shouted. "Now!" The driver complied. Nala circled to the back door and yanked it open, weapon trained on Diego Ochoa. He looked older than she remembered. Gray streaked his hair, lines creased his face, but his eyes were the same, cold, calculating, and utterly without remorse. "Nala Thompson," he said calmly, as if they were meeting for coffee. "You've caused me considerable trouble." "Get out," Nala ordered. "If you were going to kill me, you would have done it already," Ochoa said, "which means you want something. I want you in prison for the rest of your life." "Prison?" Ochoa laughed. "I've been arrested 17 times, never spent more than 48 hours in custody. My lawyers are excellent." "Not this time," Nala said. "The DEA has everything. Your supply routes, your distribution network, your offshore accounts. And now they have you. It's over, Diego." Ochoa's smile faded. You really think this ends with my arrest? I have people everywhere. In law enforcement, in politics, in the justice system. Even if I go to prison, my organization will continue, and someone will finish what I started. You'll never be safe, Nala. Neither will your family. Nala felt rage building in her chest. This man had destroyed countless lives, terrorized communities, murdered anyone who stood in his way, and he still believed he was untouchable. You're wrong, Nala said quietly. Your organization is finished. Half your lieutenants are already cooperating with federal prosecutors. Your shipments are being intercepted. Your money is frozen. And the only reason you're not dead right now is because I want to watch you rot in a cell. For the first time, fear flickered across Ochoa's face. Sirens wailed in the distance, LAPD responding to reports of gunfire. Get out of the car, Nala repeated. Slowly. Ochoa complied, his hands raised. As he stepped onto the street, Nala saw something she'd never thought she'd see. Diego Ochoa, the man who'd haunted her for 2 years, looked defeated. LAPD arrived 60 seconds later. 8 patrol cars, officers with weapons drawn. Nala lowered her gun and raised her badge, the badge Minjun had arranged for her to carry, a federal consultant credential that gave her limited law enforcement authority. Diego Ochoa, she said, wanted by the DEA for drug trafficking, racketeering, and murder. He's all yours. The officers moved in, cuffing Ochoa and reading him his rights. He didn't resist, didn't speak, just stared at Nala with hatred burning in his eyes. As they loaded him into a patrol car, Nala felt something she hadn't felt in 2 years. Relief. Minjun found her 20 minutes later, sitting on the curb outside his building. Her hands were shaking, delayed adrenaline crash. He sat down beside her without saying anything. It's done, Nala said quietly. I saw, Minjun replied. That was reckless. I know, and incredibly brave. Nala looked at him. I couldn't let him get away. Not again. I understand, Minjun said. But next time, maybe wait for backup? Next time. Nala laughed bitterly. There won't be a next time. This is over. Ochoa's in custody. The cartel is finished. I can finally disappear. Minjun was quiet for a moment. Is that what you want? To disappear again? Nala had been asking herself the same question for 3 weeks. When she'd made the deal with Minjun, disappearing had been the plan. Protect her family, take down Ochoa, and vanish before anyone could find her again. But something had changed. Over the past 3 weeks, she'd remembered what it felt like to have a purpose, to use her skills for something meaningful, to work with people she trusted, to not be alone. I don't know, Nala admitted. Well, Minjun said, if you're interested, I have a job opening. Head of personal security, 6-figure salary, full benefits, and the best perk of all, you get to tell a billionaire when he's being an idiot. Nala smiled despite herself. That's a pretty good perk. I think so. She looked at him carefully. Why do you want me to stay? Minjun met her gaze. Because in 3 weeks, you've saved my life twice, dismantled a drug cartel, and made me feel safer than I felt in years. But more than that, you've reminded me why I started this company in the first place. To protect people, to make the world a little less dangerous. And I can't think of anyone better to help me do that than you. Nala felt something shift in her chest. For 2 years, she'd been running, hiding, surviving. But maybe it was time to stop running and start living. Okay, she said. Okay, I'll take the job, Nala said. But I have one condition. Name it. Korean food twice a week. I'm not eating any more hotel room service. Minjun laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd heard from him. Deal. They shook hands, and this time it didn't feel like a business transaction. It felt like the beginning of something new. 6 months later, Nala stood in Minjun's office on the 40th floor of NextCore AI headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Los Angeles. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. So much had changed. Diego Ochoa had been convicted on 17 federal charges and sentenced to life in prison without parole. 14 of his top lieutenants had taken plea deals, providing testimony that dismantled what remained of the cartel's operations. The organization that had terrorized communities for decades was finished. Nala's family had been reunited. Her sister Jessica and her mother Diane had moved to Los Angeles, living in a secure neighborhood that Minjun's company had helped arrange. For the first time in 2 years, Nala could see them whenever she wanted. Have dinner together. Celebrate holidays. Be a family again. The FBI had quietly reinstated Nala's credentials and offered her a position in their organized crime division. She'd politely declined. She was done with undercover work, done with disappearing. She'd found something better. As Minjun's head of security, Nala had built a team of 35 specialists, former law enforcement, military veterans, and intelligence analysts. They protected Minjun, but they also did something more important. They identified threats against vulnerable communities and quietly intervened. Human trafficking networks, corporate espionage rings, domestic terrorism cells. NextCore AI's security division had become one of the most effective private security organizations in the country, and it was all because Minjun had given Nala the resources and freedom to do what she did best: protect people. Penny, for your thoughts? Minjun's voice came from behind her. Nala turned. He stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. Over the past 6 months, this had become their routine. End-of-the-day debriefs with coffee, discussing threats, strategies, and occasionally, life. Just thinking about how different things are now, Nala said, accepting the coffee. 6 months ago, I was mopping floors and hiding from the world. Now I'm running a security division for a billionaire. You're not running it for me, Minjun corrected. You're running it with me. There's a difference. It was true. Their relationship had evolved from employer-employee to partners. Minjun trusted Nala's judgment completely, and Nala had learned that Minjun's cold exterior hid someone genuinely committed to making the world safer. They'd also become friends, real friends, the kind who shared meals, traded stories, and occasionally argued about the best Korean barbecue in LA. Your mother called today, Minjun said. She wants to know if you're coming to dinner on Sunday. Are you coming? Nala asked. If I'm invited. You're always invited, Nala said. My mom thinks you're the son she never had. Jessica has a crush on you, and I. She trailed off, suddenly aware of what she'd almost said. Minjun set down his coffee and looked at her carefully. And you? Nala had spent 6 months trying to define what she felt. Gratitude, certainly. Respect. Trust. But somewhere along the way, it had become something more. Something she wasn't ready to name out loud. I'm glad you didn't die at that airport, she finally said. Minjun smiled. Me too. The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. Then Minjun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. The mayor's chief of staff, probably about the city council security assessment we're doing. Take it, Nala said. I'll finish the reports. Minjun answered the call and walked toward his desk, already shifting into business mode. Nala watched him for a moment, then turned back to the window. Los Angeles stretched out below her. 8 million people living their lives, unaware of the threats that existed in the shadows. Threats that Nala and her team worked every day to neutralize. For 2 years, she'd believed her life was over, that she'd never have a family, a career, or a future worth living. But she'd been wrong. The janitor at LAX hadn't been the end of her story. It had been a chapter, a necessary pause before everything changed. And it had changed because of a Korean billionaire who'd seen past her uniform to the person beneath, who'd given her a chance when she had nothing left to lose, who'd reminded her that strength wasn't about how well you could hide, it was about how well you could fight back. Nala pulled out her phone and sent a text to her sister. Dinner Sunday. Tell Mom I'm bringing someone. Jessica's response came immediately. OMG, finally. I knew you two would get together. Nala smiled. They weren't together, not yet, but maybe someday, when the timing was right, when they'd both figured out what they wanted. For now, this was enough. A purpose, a family, a partner she trusted, and a future worth fighting for. The world judges us by what it sees. Job titles, appearances, social status. We look at a janitor and see someone invisible. We look at a billionaire and see someone untouchable. But Nala Thompson taught Minjun Park something important that night at LAX. Something all of us need to remember. The most powerful people aren't always the ones with the biggest titles or the fattest bank accounts. They're the ones with the courage to act when it matters. The wisdom to see what others miss, the strength to protect those who can't protect themselves. Nala spent 8 months being invisible because she thought invisibility meant safety. But safety isn't about hiding. It's about having the courage to be seen, to stand up, to fight back. And sometimes the people we overlook are the ones with the most power. Minjun walked past Nala dozens of times before the attack. He never noticed her. Why would he? She was just a janitor. Someone forgettable, someone unimportant. But when the moment came, when violence erupted and death was seconds away, the janitor became a warrior. The invisible woman became a hero. And the billionaire who'd never needed anyone learned what it meant to trust someone completely. We all have hidden strengths, skills we don't advertise, courage we don't show until we have to. And most of us go through life never revealing those parts of ourselves because the world doesn't ask us to. But Nala's story reminds us that when the moment comes, when someone needs help, when injustice demands action, when the world expects us to stay silent, that's when our hidden strengths matter most. That's when we show the world who we really are. The janitor wasn't just a janitor. She was a protector, a fighter, a survivor, someone who'd sacrificed everything to do the right thing, even when it cost her everything she had. And the billionaire wasn't just a billionaire. He was someone willing to risk his reputation, his resources, and his safety to help a stranger who'd saved his life. Together, they proved something important. That strength doesn't announce itself. It shows up when needed. And the people worth trusting are the ones who act without asking what they'll get in return. So the next time you meet someone, remember Nala. Remember that the person serving your coffee might be a hero in hiding. The janitor cleaning your office might have a story that would blow your mind. The quiet colleague who never speaks up might have the wisdom you desperately need. Don't judge by appearances. Don't assume you know someone's story just by looking at them. Because the most extraordinary people are often the ones we overlook. And someday, one of them might save your life. Who's someone in your life that people underestimate? Someone who shows up, does the work, and never asks for recognition? Maybe it's a coworker, a family member, someone you see every day but never really notice. Drop their name in the comments. Tell their story. Let's celebrate the hidden heroes walking among us, because everyone deserves to be seen. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We tell stories about people who refuse to give up, who fight for what's right, and who prove that courage doesn't have a color, a gender, or a price tag. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's going through a tough time, someone who feels invisible. Because Nala's story isn't just about one woman who fought back. It's about all of us and the power we have when we refuse to stay hidden. Thank you for watching. And remember, you never know who's watching, who's waiting for their moment, who's about to change everything. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never underestimate the janitor.